Alrighty everyone, this is that time again where I'm going to be going over my top 5 ID and Xbox titles for the month of August. Now, these aren't going to appear in any particular order outside of how they appear in the Xbox Store from the most recently released titles that made an impact for my top 5. So without further ado, we are going to scroll down through the Xbox Store and dive into the first on our top 5 list. And the first game to appear on our top 5 list is Lord of the Rings Return to Moria. Now, why does this game make my top 5? First and foremost, I love Lord of the Rings. I think we kind of got shafted recently with Gollum. It was not the greatest of games. And Lord of the Rings Return to Moria kind of gives us a really fun, also multiplayer experience in the Lord of the Rings universe that I think just checks so many boxes for being just a really fun game. Apologies there. And gives you just a really fun perspective in the kind of dwarven aspect of just the entire universe of Lord of the Rings. You get to kind of pursue routes that Gimli and the dwarves would have gone trying to take back Moria and get through the kind of world. And, it's a game that really stood out to me and I thought was pretty fun. The controls are really great. I think the game comes in at a decent price. It's only $20. You really can't go wrong with this game. It's a solid pickup, a solid buy, and just a lot of fun. And it's a bonus if you can even find additional friends to play the game with. It makes it even better. And if you don't have people to play the game with, you can always use the looking for group feature. And if my highlights on this game aren't enough, just like getting solid reviews on the Xbox Store can be a really hard thing for a game to get. So seeing this game sitting at a 4.7, I think only validates kind of my thoughts and opinions on Lord of the Rings Return to Moria. And yeah, that's why this game hits my my top 5. So without further ado, we'll move on to number 2. Okay, and number 2 for me has to be a game, I love puzzle games. I love games that test skills, and kind of Parking Masters checks that box of a fun puzzle game that has you driving cars around. And as you're playing through the game, you're just going to be kind of working at maneuvering, backing, turning, dragging trailers, and everything in between to complete out the different levels. Now, they're not necessarily the easiest things to do. It'll test your driving prowess as you navigate with trailers, different types of vehicles, road hazards, and everything in between to complete out these levels. There's a lot of levels. If I remember right, there's 250 plus levels, as well as DLC stuff you can get. There's an Ultimate Edition that you can purchase for even more content. And it comes out to be a pretty fun puzzle driving game that is really solidly priced at $13. So you can't really go wrong with a game that's just done really well. We've had various car driving parking puzzle games over the years, and for me, Parking Masters just checks the perfect box for how these games all come together, and is just done really well. And it gets even positive reviews. Granted, there's not a ton of them here, but nothing that's bashing this game, and already having the DLC right off the bat is even better and gives you more hope that even additional future DLC might come out for this game. So that's why Parking Masters makes my top 5. So without further ado, let's move on to number 3. Okay, so number 3 for me has to be House of Golf 2. First and foremost, I love mini golf games, and I think any chance to play mini golf is definitely a win for me. Now, I will say, if you watched my video for the game, I do have some gripes about it, but the gripes are kind of overshadowed by just being a fun game that I think has some potential to be better if a couple of additions get added to it. Now, the price point for this game is $30, so it's a steep price point for, yes, a mini golf game. So if you're not a big fan of mini golf, it's going to be a hard pill to swallow with that price point, but the gameplay enough for this and the level design is actually really fun. The thing that I do wish is the game had was online multiplayer so you could play with your friends. It does have couch co-op, but for me the biggest detractors are the price is a little steep, and it doesn't have online multiplayer, but it's overshadowing those by just some really fun gameplay, collectibles and things you can find throughout the game, tons of different cosmetic stuff you can unlock, and it's, you know, kind of done pretty well. Like I said, the biggest gripes that people go for this game is just the price of it, or the lack of online multiplayer, which, again, if you can overshadow those, House of Golf 2's, you know, comes out to be not a bad game, and then maybe you can also try to hopefully find this on sale in the future. But that's why House of Golf 2 makes my top 5. So let's move on to number 4. Okay, so number 4 for me has to be Kena Bridge of Spirits. This is a really fun, story-driven action and adventure game that comes in at a price of $40, so it's a bit of a tall price point, so it's approaching that like AAA game kind of price, but it's a game that is done so well, looks so good, and has such an imaginative story. It honestly reminds me of the Pikmin games. If you've ever gotten to play Pikmin, where you're going around collecting creatures that help you fight and battle things in a pretty big world that has a solid story-driven atmosphere and visuals that are just makes you wonder, how was this made by a small studio? It's got really good controls, really great artwork, and it's really just a really fun overall ID and Xbox title that has someone just going on a great journey, and you get to bring and interact with the characters along the way. I think the little characters that you get to collect that, again, remind me of Pikmin, are just a great touch to the game. You'll get some pretty cool dynamic boss fights that incorporate the different skills and interactions you get to use together, and things don't necessarily seem too super competitive. The game just does a really good job at bringing like the core gameplay it establishes at the beginning of the game, and it has you running through the whole duration of the game. That's why, you know, Kena Bridge of Spirits makes its way into my top 5. I think the price point for the game is honestly justifiable for the content you have here, and just how good the game is, the story and everything. And some of the cinematic sequences for me are some of the best that I've seen in ID and Xbox games quite a long time. The combat's great, the art style is fantastic, and it's just done really well. It makes you, again, wonder if this was an ID and Xbox title or a AAA title. So, for me, I'm going to let the video continue to run, and then we'll talk a little bit more, and I'll show a little bit more on the, based on the feedback other players are giving.
The path of a spirit guide is a lonely one.
I mean, how can you not, like, get excited for that trailer for the game and not be excited for it? And the game even accompanies, it's our second game with a 4.7 review in the Xbox store, which, again, is absolutely hard to do. You check most game reviews on games. Gamers are super critical, so to get this many positive reviews on this game in the Xbox Store is just a shout out to how good Kena Bridge experience is, and that's why it makes my top 5 list for August. Let's move on to my last and final game in the top 5 to number 5. Okay, and number 5 on my list is a game that you might have missed. I made a video on it, and it's a unique time-based puzzle game where you're these kind of organisms that are coming together to have different abilities as you trigger your way through puzzles that are requiring you to hit different button prompts, kind of create your little collection of, I want to call them like little amoebas and stuff, going through the different puzzles that are musically based as you hit sequences to trigger doors, and navigate through just honestly a neat art style world that has really well done puzzles and honestly just great artwork, and really kind of shows you kind of the creation of life and the origin of things within how this game's world works out. It's one of those that I wasn't expecting it to be any type of fun, but it just a memory in my brain of just being unique is something that kind of stood out for me along the way. And it coming in at $15, it's one of those games that for the price point, it's worth giving it a shot. Getting to see kind of how life forms things to develop, and getting to just have some fun. Now, there's not a lot of reviews on this game because I don't think a lot of people have checked this one out. Probably been more of like a sleeper kind of title than anything that just hasn't had a lot of eyes and chances to check it out. And I think it's one of those ID and Xbox titles that I'd highly recommend you guys taking a look at and, giving a shot for yourself if it's something you overpassed and didn't even take 2 seconds to think about. And, that's what wraps up. And honestly, I'm not going to wrap up there. That's why, there's so many ID and Xbox titles that could come out every month, and I think a lot of people don't always pay attention to all of them. So I would encourage you guys, check out more of these games that you might not necessarily take a look at, because a lot of these independent developers are the ones who are bringing us some of the best games that kind of at times shine higher than AAA titles for the most part, and I think are opportunities to help expand and grow the next iteration of games out there. And some of these ID developers could be our AAA developers in the next 5 to 10 years, so it's really cool to see and get to highlight and showcase these. And if you're always wondering what some of these games are like, it's really simple. You can always subscribe to my channel or my other friends that make content as well. We showcase almost all of these ID and Xbox title games every month, or as much as we can, and it's a great opportunity to see some of the gameplay, get our thoughts and impressions, and just have some fun and just join us along the way. So all I can say is, if you're still watching the video, I appreciate you hanging out with me and hearing what my top 5 titles for August were. Let me know down below in the comments what your top games were from August that you got to play from the ID and Xbox lineup of titles. And as always, I appreciate you guys so much, and I'll catch you guys next time.